Hi everyone, it's Jill Foster here for Penny Black with a new Positively Penny Black video. And during these difficult times, we are committed to bringing our followers some positive messages of inspiration, hope, art, craft, distraction, and sharing. So let's go ahead and get started on today's card. Here's a look at what we will be creating, and this card features some critter stamping and some masking to create a fun, whimsical springtime card. And before we start, I just wanted to mention that I will have a full supply list at the very end of the video. So if you want to see exactly what stamps, dies, markers, colors, everything at that time, just hit pause and you can check it out in more detail. So to begin, we're going to be doing some stamping with our miniature 3x4-inch transparent set called Fun Felines. And I am going to be stamping this onto Bristol paper. This is a really great paper for the marker and coloring technique, which I will be showing in just a bit. So I am going to ink this with a VersaFine Onyx black ink. I'm going to be using some water and watercoloring, and once dry, this ink will be waterproof. And I went ahead and stamped that onto that Bristol paper, and I am just grabbing now some Eclipse masking paper. This is sort of like a giant sticky note. It's very removable, and I save all my scraps of this, so I'm just grabbing a scrap here, and I will, while it's in the MISTI, just go ahead and stamp that again. Now I'm using the MISTI stamp positioning tool, but you certainly could use any acrylic block that you have on hand. The next layer of stamping we're going to add is our wildflower stamp, and this is also a miniature transparent stamp set. So I'm going to put my mask over the kitty, very easy mask to cut out, and then I'm going to grab this wildflowers stamp, and I just love the movement and the beauty of these wildflowers. So I'm going to just position them onto this, just taking a peek at where they will land sort of behind that cat that I've already stamped. And again, I'm going to stamp these using VersaFine Onyx black ink. And then what's great about this is it doesn't have an exact sort of starting or ending point on either side. So you can layer this stamping to cover the entire length of your card. So I'm using a standard size card here, 4¼ by 5½. And just by tilting it a little bit and moving it up, it just gives it a whole different look and looks like you just have a cohesive sort of field of wildflowers growing in the background. So I've stamped that, and my favorite part there is removing the mask and seeing the scene that we have created. I really encourage you to give that a try. Do some masking with your critters and your more elegant stamps. It's really fun to think of the different ways that you can use them. So to color everything on this card, I am using a combination of Arteza Twi markers, which you'll see me using right here, as well as Arteza Real Brush pens. Now the Twi markers have a fine tip, and they have a very sturdy tip, and you can also blend them with water, so they are a water-based marker. The Real Brush markers are water-based, but they have the tip of those markers is really like a brush. It is like applying with a paintbrush. So I pick whatever marker I'm using, either based on if I'm doing a small, tiny area, I will try to use a Twi marker with that fine tip. And I also choose the marker I'm going to use based off the color. So I pick my favorite colors from both sets to color. You can see here, I'm just laying down the color and then going in with my paintbrush and blending it. You can also blend just using the markers and not using any water, just using a lighter color to blend them. I put the marker color down where I want it to be the darkest and then blend it out. Now here I'm going to color with a marker onto just an old acrylic block to use as a palette, and pick up that color using a paintbrush and a little bit of water, and that just makes it easy to add a very light wash of that color. So for example, for the blush of the little kitty's cheeks. And I'm just picking that pink up there and adding it to her ears as well. And I almost forgot her tail, but got it right there with the marker. Now here for some of these flowers, I'm just going to add a little bit of that light pink, and then I will go in with my water and just blend that out. Now I think this kitty cat, of course, and even these flowers when combined with it can have a whimsical look to them, so I'm not looking for perfect painting and shading. I want things to have sort of an artsy, whimsical look. Now here I am coloring with an orange, moving in with a mid yellow and then an even lighter yellow, and just coloring directly and blending them together with the lighter color. So you don't have to use water with these. You can just use the lighter colored marker to blend. Now if you do find that you have any transfer of the darker color onto the tip of the lighter marker, I just keep a piece of scratch paper off to the side and color with the lighter marker until the darker color comes off and it colors clean. So I did those just with markers and didn't use any water. And here I wanted just a lighter look, so I'm just using the two yellows and omitting the orange. So what I was going for was the light pink and then sort of a darker, more orangey yellow and then a lighter yellow. And you'll see later in the video I do go back and kind of darken up those orange, the ones that I wanted to be more orange, just for a little more contrast. I felt like once I finished, the yellow ones were all sort of starting to look the same, which is not quite what I was going for. That'll make more sense here in a bit when I go back and change that. So here I'm going to work on the background. So I'm coloring with a lighter green just around those flowers and those images. The markers color really smoothly on the Bristol paper. But you can certainly use this technique of stamping and masking, combining critter stamps with more elegant floral images using whatever type of coloring mediums you have on hand or that you like to use. So you could stamp this with a Copic friendly ink and color it with any alcohol based markers. You could stamp this onto watercolor paper and paint it in with your favorite watercolors. You could do it with colored pencils. There's no wrong way to do the coloring, but it is certainly fun to mix and match your stamps and do some masking. You will be amazed at just how fun it is to come up with how you're going to stamp it, planning that out, and then trying different images together. So here I'm going in and putting in some darker green. I want to have a little more contrast between that lighter green and the flowers in the background. But I find by putting that lighter color first, it's easier to blend that out to white up at the top and to blend it in here to this darker green. I also like that lighter green because it gives this darker green more of a yellow olivey undertone, which I prefer when I'm using greens. So you'll notice I'm not coloring all the way to the top or over all of that lighter color, just a little bit near the bottom. And I will even put a little bit darker green down here at the very, very bottom. Another idea that I recommend when you're doing your stamping is to play around with stamping your images going off the edge of your paper. So you can see here with the cat I've even tilted a little bit and not put its entire body on there, and that also adds interest to your design. Now I'm ready to go back in and blend, so I'm wetting my brush in my cup of water, patting it on a paper towel, and then applying it to the paper. I don't want to use too much, and I do want to be careful to try not to paint over areas that I've already painted, because then that color will start to blend out into the background. So I don't want to bump into those flowers. I'm going to do my best to paint around them. And then all those different greens will start to mix together, but fading up to the light up at the top. And I just continue blending that. Now I have found that the longer I let the marker color sit on the paper before I go in with the water to blend it, the harder it is to blend. So you may want to work just small sections at a time, or put down your light and blend it with water, and then your medium and your darker colors and blend it with water. I like the texture that this sort of gave, but just different ways to play around with it so it works for you. Now here I've grabbed one of those fine tip twine markers, and I am just going right over the stems. I've just chosen a darker green. That way when I painted that background, I did not have to worry at all about painting around the stems. I'm using a Pitt Artist pen just to darken up the face here on the cat, just to bring her more into the foreground a little bit. Draw your eye to her. And here's where I was talking about, I decided I had just a few of these flowers that I wanted to be, just have a little more variety to them and more of an orange color instead of everything looking sort of that same yellow. So I'm actually going in with a bit of red and orange and yellow and just sort of reblending and coloring in those. And I was happy with that look. I felt like it just gave it a little bit more interest and not quite so flat on those flowers in the background. And again, you can see for these, I'm just blending them directly using the markers and not worrying about going in with any water to do that blending. And I'll add just a touch of that to the centers of a couple of these flowers just to tie it all together down there at the bottom near the stem. And even a little bit more orange here and there on a few of these. You know me, once I get to coloring and fiddling around, sometimes it's hard for me to stop. But as long as I'm having fun, that's all that matters. To finish this off, I kept things really simple, but I stamped a sentiment in black from our Blooming Sentiment set. There's so many really encouraging sentiments in here. I really encourage you to take a closer look at that set. So I just stamped that up at the top and just kept things very simple on this design. So there's a look at the stamp sentiment and a look at the finished card. I mounted it to a standard 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card using foam squares. I thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and also ring the bell so you will receive a notification each time we post a new video. We also invite you to fill your feed, so to speak, with our Facebook, Instagram, and blog posts, which we are doing our best to fill with all things happy at this time. And I've linked to all of these for you down in the YouTube description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and if you stay tuned, here will be the supply list as promised.